Welcome, everyone. You're listening to the ImPerfect Podcast. I'm Kathy.
And I'm Kennedy. Join us on this week's episode as we discuss intriguing topics and people of interest that will inspire us to explore all of the unique pieces of ourselves.
We are all imperfectly perfect.
We're glad you're here. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the ImPerfect Podcast.
Hi, everyone. Today we have the pleasure of interviewing someone I went to high school with, a girl named Melissa. And even back in high school, I remember Melissa being part of so many activities. She was always the go-to person, and she always seemed to have a lot of connections.
Yeah, Melissa has been recognized as one of BizBash's 15 over 50 in 2022 and has been in the event industry for 25 plus years in roles such as sales, marketing, and management for companies like Encore and Bespoke Audiovisual. She has also been a part of planning events for some pretty important people, including the Queen, and has supported product launches for the Olympics, Pan Am Games, and G20 events, to name a few.
Yeah, she's a wife and a mom, a college teacher, an equestrian, and also a lover of shoes. Melissa has such a positive attitude and a great outlook on life. We really look forward to chatting with her.
Yeah, so here's Melissa.
Hi, Melissa.
Hello.
How are you?
Very good. Thank you.
It's been a long time since we talked.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Although I was thinking it's probably been, well, I would guess it was pre-COVID. You and I last saw each other at our high school reunion.
Yeah.
So at least I have that to reference. Other than that, I've been following you both on the podcast. So at least I get to see your smiling faces there. So yeah.
That's awesome. So why don't you tell us about you? What's your story? Who's Melissa and what your interests are?
Holy smokes. When you prepped me for this with some of your questions, the first thing I thought was, wow, great questions. The second thing I thought was, oh my goodness, now I have to put my thinking cap on and come up with something good so people are interested, because I know you got to capture them right off the hop.
Oh, no.
So let's see. So Melissa Deslauriers, and the reason, I guess the biggest reason I follow you both is I'm from the little map dot that is known as Salisbury, New Brunswick. And I don't hesitate to tell anybody that I am an East Coaster. Although, funny story, I was actually born in Guelph, Ontario, while my father was doing his master's degree at the University of Guelph. And today I live 20 minutes from that campus. So I guess you can say I've kind of come for full circle in what I do. But I grew up on the East Coast, so in Nova Scotia, New Brunswick. I love it dearly. And when I went to high school in Salisbury, I was very involved in student politics, events, all high school dances. Those were my big thing. I don't know, they still have those today? Like
they do, yeah.
Sort of.
When Mom was telling me just a little bit about you, because obviously you guys have that connection, she was starting to list off things you did in high school, and she just went, you know what? She's basically what you were in high school, Kennedy. The student council, grad stuff. Anyway, no, that's what she described.
She ended up with the Berks Medal at graduation, actually, and I believe your father came up and congratulated her.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Because my dad was quick to tell me all about you. Yes. So so I still get, my fingers on the pulse. What's going on down there? Who's doing what? And it was nice to hear that's, they're still giving out the Berks Medal, that there's still opportunities for folks to get involved, because I think when you're involved in your community and you learn those skills, those are things that are going to carry you on through. And really, that's what it did for me, being involved in student council, in 4-H, high school. When I went, packed my bags and went off to university in Halifax, I went to Mount St. Vincent to get my Bachelor of Public Relations degree. And I thought, okay, communications, marketing, this is where it's at for me. Although, funny story, I changed my mind about what school I was going to 4 weeks before I graduated, much to my parents' chagrin. I thought I was going to be a veterinarian. thought that's what my life calling was. And I quickly went, oh my God, what am I doing? I'm not great in science. I mean, you probably remember that, Kathy. I wasn't.
I wasn't really great in anything. So
I was like, oh my God, what am I thinking? And then I remember going to the guidance counselor's office saying, I think I want to do public relations. And Mr. Kavanaugh was like, you don't have any business courses. You don't know how to type. Like, good luck, kiddo, and best wishes. And I said, nope, this is for me. And off I went, and I actually completed that degree. And then when I finished, it was a recession, which I know we're all talking about that right now. Hey, it's coming down the pipe again. So when I graduated, there really weren't a lot of job prospects, sadly. And I thought, okay, I can't see myself, one, writing press releases for the government for the rest of my life. I mean, I had done it a little bit, but it's not really my cup of tea. I like things that are busy, fast-paced, go, go, go. And I had been working for the company that actually did our video dance parties when I was in high
remember
school.
that.
Yeah.
You were like the girl with the connections.
Yeah. So they had hired me out of high school to speak at student leadership conferences, to talk about how to run a successful dance program, because here we were, little map dot in Salisbury, and ran events that were better than high schools in Halifax, right? And they were like,
Wow.
hey, share the success stories. So I was lucky enough to do that to help pay for university. And then when I graduated, I talked to the owner of the company, and I remember Andrew saying, hey, why don't you come work for me full time, right? And I said, are you kidding? Like, in sales? Like, I'm not a used car salesperson. Like, this is not for me. If people don't want it, I can't sell it. Like, this is not what I can do. And then we had some other conversations. He said, Melissa, look, sales, a good salesperson, it's all about building relationships, and it's about identifying, establishing, and maintaining really good relationships with your clients and solving problems. And I went, I can do that. And then I realized when I did it, holy cow, did I love it. Like, that was just my cup of tea. So I started as their salesperson for Western Canada. So I had every high school, university, and college from Thunder Bay West. So think about the map of Canada, right? Think about Thunder Bay West, 4 time zones, multiple provinces, places I had never been in my life. I had the biggest map of Canada on my wall and had to know where all the schools were and talk to all these lovely folks. But man, it was great. Like, it was just my cup of tea. And I did that for, I worked for him for several years. In fact, the company at the time was headquartered in Halifax, Nova Scotia. And then they were moving, because they were Canada-wide, to Toronto. So that's when I packed up everything I owned, my little Volkswagen Jetta, and drove from Halifax to Toronto, the center of the universe. At least that's what everybody in Toronto likes to think. Packed up everything I owned and moved here where the business is. Because, I mean, that's why most folks will move away from the East Coast, right? Because there's not a lot of jobs. We move away to get work and experience in the hopes that maybe we can go back to the East Coast. So that's what I did. And even though I got a raise, I quickly learned that I couldn't afford a frigging cardboard box. Oh, sorry. I won't swear, I promise.
Frigging is not swearing. Yeah.
I was like, oh my goodness, this is insane. So, you get yourself a roommate, you learn how to live on your own. And I was 22 at the time. And I look back now, because I have a daughter who's 20, and I go, I can't even imagine my daughter moving out or halfway across the country at this stage in her life, but I'm sure she could. But you learn, right? And you just pull out all the resources that you can, and you go with it. And so I did that for a while. And then I realized one of my largest clients was Vancouver Technical School. And after their 5th bomb threat for a dance, I said, I can't do this anymore. This is like, my nerves are fried. I got to find something else. And I actually ended up interviewing with the company that we bought the old projectors for the dances for. And at the time, that company did conferences, product launches, different kinds of events like press conferences. Anytime you see a screen, a projector, or a microphone, those audiovisual production companies tend to be involved. So I interviewed as a salesperson to be on their simultaneous interpretation side. So my job was to provide equipment for events that were in multiple languages. So you could put on a headset and listen to an interpreter interpret whatever the presenter was saying in the language of your choice. And I worked with that company for 22 years. Everything from sales to I was their sales team lead when they did their mergers and acquisitions and became a global company. At one point in my career, I actually commuted between Toronto, Montreal, and Dallas. And that was the hardest part of my career because it was right after I had my daughter as well. So I just couldn't, when I came back from maternity leave, I was like, I can't get on a plane every Sunday night and leave her for a week. I mean, very blessed that I have a husband who's very supportive, who's also in this industry of live events. So he gets it. So did that, managed some sales teams, and then the company just got so big. In 2018, after they had done another merger and acquisition, they were looking at their spreadsheets, and we're talking thousands of employees globally. I just became a number on the spreadsheet and I lost my job. That was the first of, holy cow. Even though my team had a record-breaking year, we were doing great events. It was, we got to cut some people, and I just ended up being that cut. And when it's the first time when you lose your job, you go, oh my God, like this is a little overwhelming. But if I look back, I go, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And the reason for that is because I had only worked for one real company for a very long period of time. So although I changed jobs, that was the only culture and world that I knew. So now I kind of had to pick myself up, dust myself off, and find something else. And because I had a lot of connections in the industry, I just talked to people to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up. And
that was one of our questions.
I still don't know, ladies. I still don't know.
That seems to be the running joke, is nobody ever really figures out what they want to be when they grow up. It's just this never-ending cycle of trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
I think you're right, Kennedy. I think you nailed it. Like, it's just one of those, you just, you keep moving on. I think, hey, I ended up in what is officially known as live events and audiovisual and production. But nobody goes to school and says, hey, I want to be an AV professional. Like, we all go, what the heck is that? Like, people still don't know what I do. And I go, okay, number one, I am the worst person in the world to go to a conference with, a concert with, or a stage.
They're doing it all wrong.
It's not so much that. And I love going because I have a great appreciation for the folks in this world and their craft. And you can see that the people who love it genuinely love it, right? Especially after the last couple of years where our industry was decimated because of COVID.
Right.
But I can usually tell you what's going to happen before it happens. So I have to keep my mouth shut. So that's the tough part. But losing that job allowed me to find another company to go back to a smaller organization, because I had left one that had, like I said, thousands of employees around the world. And I ended up at a small boutique agency where the average age of the employee was 22. And that, by that point, that was how long I had been in the industry, right? So these folks had, they were a little wet behind the ears, but man, were they great people to work with. So young, so energetic, loved it, like just loved it. And worked with that, smaller company for a little bit, and then changed during COVID to another boutique organization. And I know Kathy's going to hit me with the punch and say, hey, what's going on now? And as luck would have it, or wouldn't, I just recently lost my job again, which means me looking for my next opportunity. But, I know there's something out there. I don't know what it is yet. And I think this gives me an opportunity to take that pause and go, okay, what are my strengths? What do I really like to do? Where am I going from here? And if I've learned anything over the last 2 years during COVID, it's always have a backup plan, always have something else, and always keep your ear to the ground. And I've been fortunate because in the last 5 years, I've been teaching part-time at Conestoga College. So that's kind of my fallback, I guess, if you will.
What are you teaching there?
So I'm actually teaching 2 courses. The one course that I started with is production and staging for event management students. So a lot of times when people run events, they hire event planners who are specialists in getting all the right people in the right seats to make an event happen. And I teach the production side. Like, what do you need to get an event going? Like, how many screens, how many projectors, do you need lights, do you need microphones? And in the world of virtual, so in the last couple of years, I've been coaching folks with how do you use Zoom? How do you set up your microphone? How do you set up your internet?
I need that course.
I was gonna say, mom's laughing.
Because I've been pretty green about this. Thank goodness for Kennedy.
You know what? It's great. Like, and I've said, and I know people, because I still present at conferences on technology as well. I say to folks, I've learned as much from the students as they have from me, I swear, because when COVID happened, I'll never forget, I had been in the classroom right after reading week, and I said to the students, because we do a portion on risk management when it comes to events, I said, don't worry, we've lived through, like I've lived through 9/11, H1N1, SARS, like this will be a blip in the radar. I'll see you in a couple weeks. We'll be fine. No problem.
Just kidding.
And then it was like, oh, the dean just sent a note and all the professors get online and they're like, so, you know, that classroom you were in? Yeah, you have to take your entire curriculum, put it online, use this thing called Zoom, which, you know what, if I could go back 2.5 years and invest in anything, it would be Zoom, right? Because we'd all be millionaires, right? And make it happen. And what was interesting for me is the classroom kept going and the students embraced the technology, but the world of live events, which I was in full time, hit pause and said, no, we're going to wait. We'll wait. And I'm like, what are you waiting for? People still have to talk to each other and communicate and like get on this bus. And even now, as we're coming out of it, because events are moving back to in-person again, still a fair amount of hybrid and virtual. I know here in Ontario, we're experiencing another wave of flu and everything else. So people are still reluctant and their comfort levels aren't high. So you still have to know the virtual technology. And I think students and sometimes the younger generations, because they embrace it and they've done everything from gaming to Snapchat to TikTok, they get it and they know how to make things work. So hire them, get them involved, get them to teach you, and you can make it work. You can make anything work. You just have to be willing to do that. That's all. Yeah.
And it's such a collaborative effort too, like you were saying. I was just thinking while you were talking, I graduated in the midst of the beginnings of COVID. So the last 4 months or so of my college time was spent at home with my teachers and the students trying to figure out how to make this work. So it was a big adjustment, but everyone made it out somehow. So we're here.
You made it out, right?
Yeah.
And I also look at, let's say, education is big business. So 75% of my students are international. Wow. They're not even Canadian. They're from India, they're from China, they're from wherever. So to learn about their lives and how they do things and the experience they bring to the table, huge. Because it's a global economy, right? So very interesting.
Yeah. So a little bit more about you. We'd like to know beyond just your career and you being a part of the college and teaching a bit there and things like that. What makes you feel most inspired or like your best self? Do you have a specific hobby or things you like to do on the side that makes you you?
That makes me yes, let's see. Well, number one, it's family is a big thing for me. I live on a 10-acre hobby farm with my husband, my daughter, and we did for a time, and actually he's back home right now. We have a sponsored son, Duncan, who's from Vietnam. So
Wow.
he's currently at Mount Allison, and Harmony, my daughter, is at McMaster University. So family is a big thing, even though we're small. I don't have a lot of kids, but we're, very invested in each other.
Mhm.
And then the animals. It's all about Mother Nature and being outside for me. It always has been. Like, I feel much more grounded and more myself when I can be with the animals. And I have been an avid equestrian, so horseback rider for,
Mhm.
I hate to say, like 40 years, but it's
Wow.
been it's been that long. And we purchased the farm 10 years ago because I was spending so much time out where the horses were boarded that I didn't get enough opportunity to spend as much time with the family as I wanted to. So we just decided, why don't we take that money and we'll just invest it in having the animals in the backyard. And God love him. I'm not sure my city husband, who grew up without a lawn in like North End Halifax, knew what he was getting into when we got the farm. But now we're, 2 cats, 2 dogs, 3 horses, 2 tractors.
Wow.
No day is like another. In fact, the year we purchased the farm and we moved in at the end of the summer. By the next spring, I was about ready to put the for sale sign at the end of the driveway because we had endured the ice storm with no power for 5 days. And when you live on a rural property, I think you can relate where you are, but people in Ontario still don't get it. Like they're like, oh, you're on a rural property, but you still have everything. No. You lose power. You don't have water. You don't have lights. Like, you need a generator. Like, you can't flush the toilets. Hello. So you learn a lot about yourself and what you want to do. And I have a great deal of respect for, like I said, the animals, Mother Nature. And just when you think you got it, gosh, she'll hit you with something else. And it's like, oh, now I have to be really creative again. But,
Right. Yeah.
yeah. So, at the beginning I start every day with the animals because we have chores to do, and end the day with the animals as well at night check. And I think that was probably the saving grace for all of us during COVID, is because you have to get up, right? Like there's no holiday unless we bring somebody in to stay on the farm. Like, there's no holiday. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I really appreciate your positive outlook on everything too, up until this point, like, unless you're just fooling us, but you have a really great positive outlook with everything when it comes to your hobby farm, like you said, and COVID and how that got you out of bed in the morning, and your progression with your jobs and where you've been and not been, and losing your job, but you're seeing it as an opportunity. Like, that's really great.
Thank you, Kennedy. It's, you know what, I'm not going to say that every day is easy. It's not. There have been moments in the last few weeks and even the last few years, I'll fully admit, to wanting to crawl up in a ball and just not talk to anybody, see anything, do anything. And then you get up and you go, okay, one foot in front of the other.
Right.
Like, I truly believe we only get handed what we can deal with. And sometimes there are points where you go, I'm not so sure I can deal with this. Like, this is like the end of my rope. But you can, like, you find a way, and maybe it's just a way to try and shake things up a little bit, so you realize that you're stronger than you think you were.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah. What were you going to say, Mom?
I was going to ask Melissa what the most important thing is that you've learned in your life so far.
Go with your gut. Go with your gut always. I don't think I realized when I was younger how important emotional intelligence is, and that not everybody has it. But those of us who do need to learn to embrace it and trust it. Because anytime I've gone against what my, the feeling in the pit of my stomach was saying.
Yeah, I know it.
Right? It's like, that was the worst decision ever, because I didn't listen to me, who actually knew. And that's it. So, regardless of where you are and what stage of your life you're at, listen to yourself, because you know you better than anybody else. So,
right. And at the
Yeah.
end of the day, you have you, and that's all you have, no matter
Yeah.
what. So putting you first is important. It's easier said than done, though.
Oh, Kennedy, I think you nailed it, right? Putting yourself first. And I love the fact that you say that, because hearing folks who are younger than me saying that means that they're hearing it and hopefully they're doing it. Because I think if I go back, I was not putting myself first for sure. And even I find myself doing that today, because one of my strengths is coaching and helping other people. So I've always been the cheerleader behind the scenes. And then people go, oh, you did that? Yeah, I did that. But I didn't, stand on a rooftop and tell the whole world. But yeah, you need to put yourself first. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I mean, I struggle with that in different ways too. Just it made me think of when you were saying that. It's hard to put yourself first in situations where you also want to see other people thrive. So you struggle with this. I'm going to help this person and get them to a position or a spot where they're feeling their best self. And then suddenly you've realized you've put yourself on the back burner. It's so easy to do that.
It is. It's so easy to do. Although I still, I think about things and go, okay, so I do believe karma. It happens. It comes around. Maybe it takes longer than we want it to sometimes, but it does. And being a principled individual, like sticking to your beliefs, is very important. So maybe people don't know the full story right away, but I think down the road it'll come out that you stuck to your guns, you stood by your belief system, and that's important. And
that's big. Yeah.
It sure is. Yeah.
So do you have, we just have a couple more little questions to learn a bit more about you. What is your biggest regret or failure? Or is there one that you can think of?
Yeah, not drawing boundaries earlier, and understanding that the word no can be a complete sentence.
Right.
Like,
that's a big one.
It's a big one. Struggle with that today. And I struggle with, because I'm a people pleaser and I want to help everybody. Sometimes I take on more than I should. And I think a lot of folks struggle with that. So drawing that boundary, and it's okay. It's okay to walk away.
Absolutely. And drawing that boundary, because you don't want to. It's funny, again, like we put ourselves in situations where we would rather see ourselves uncomfortable rather than making someone else uncomfortable. So trying those boundaries are big. And again, easier said than done for sure.
And you know what? If I could go out on a limb, I almost think, and I don't say this often, but I say this a fair amount. I believe trying to make people comfortable and being people pleasers is, when I look at the country, is more an East Coast thing than anywhere else. Right? Like, and I've been in Ontario for, oh gosh, almost 30 years now, and they have no problem telling you how it is and drawing their boundaries. And it's like, whoa, wait a minute. So, but I think maybe we could like learn from each other. They can soften a little bit and we can
harden up a bit.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really neat. I really, really appreciate your level of honesty and candidness in being just who you are and presenting even the imperfect parts of you. That was the last question we have. What is it in your mind that, I mean, you've shared a lot, but is there one thing in particular that makes you imperfect?
I knew you were going to ask me this one, and this is a tough question because and it's a great question because it's, your podcast, right? And when I first saw the name of the podcast, I went, that's fantastic. It's true, because we're all imperfect and we need to embrace that. So when I think about me, I think about, I'm really good at coaching. I love it. I love teaching. I think, if I go back in time and I go, my best professors were the ones that lived it and could bring it back to the classroom. And that's what I do today. So I really love that. But I'm imperfect because I really struggle with taking my own advice sometimes. So I'm really good at dishing it out. Sometimes I just have to put that little sticky note on my monitor and go, you need to listen to this yourself.
I think we're all that way. I was actually, Kennedy and I were having a discussion the other day, and I said, here I am studying natural medicine and all these modalities that I can use to help other people. And, my list is pretty significant. But meanwhile, I'll sit there on the couch and go, my leg hurts. I'm not sure what, and I have the skills. If it was Kennedy, I'd be like, well, let me check that out for you. I got a little this and a little that, and, but me, I'm like, what should I do about this leg? So definitely true. What you're saying it's true, eh?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I have to give myself reminders, like write myself the little stickies, take a moment, take a step back, and then,
Well, and sticky notes are a great reminder too. It's good that you use them, because that's a whole other layer of my issue is, okay, well, I have to go buy the sticky notes to write the notes down to then remind myself to do these things. So it's a whole process in my head, but it's great that you've implemented that. Something I can work on for myself for sure. But like Mom said, it seems that, and a lot of people that we've talked to so far, and just discussions we have with people in our regular life, it seems that everyone's putting on this mask of, I've got everything figured out, and nobody's got it figured out. And why aren't we being honest about that? Because we put on this front that makes everyone else feel like they're inadequate. So anyway, but
oh, heck no. We don't all have it figured out. Nobody has it figured out.
Seems like nobody has it figured out.
But we all just pretend, or a lot of us pretend that we have it figured out. Yeah. And meanwhile, we're all kind of, living behind the screen, hoping nobody else figures it out. Right. So,
right. It's like that iceberg, right? Like you only ever see the tip, but underneath the water, there's so much more. And that's, it's so much more going on.
So much more to the story.
If they tell you they've got it figured out, those are the people you really got to stay away from.
Listen to your gut.
Yeah.
Yes. Because they don't have it. No, it's, there's so much going on. And like I say, like all of us bring something to the table. We all know a little bit about something, but you put us all together and people can do so much more.
Right.
And I think it's just, you have to realize that everybody brings something to the table. Everybody comes from different backgrounds. Everybody can help each other. And what you see on the surface, like the socials, and I get it. I've spent the last few years taking companies and making them brand leaders.
Right.
I don't ever show their imperfections. Does it mean they don't have any? Oh, yes, they do. Just like I do. But I'm not going to show the world all of that. But I think sometimes we need to. Yeah. Definitely.
Well, thank you so much, Melissa, for taking the time. I know you and Mom had that small connection from high school, but I was looking forward to speaking with you just in what Mom has told me about you. And again, we really appreciate your positive outlook with everything and seeing everything as an opportunity. And like you said, as you were telling your story, it seems that in everyone's life, I mean, everyone has to keep putting one foot in front of the other. So it's interesting how we don't see the downfalls in life as an opportunity for something else. So that's really, really great. And we appreciate that. And thank you so much. And to all our viewers, we will see you next Monday.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
If you or someone you know has a unique story to tell, we'd love to hear from you. Email us at theimperfectpodcast@outlook.com.
For more information and how to connect with us on social media, you can visit us at our website, theimperfectpodcast.ca.
And from whichever platform you are listening to this episode, be sure to like, share, and leave us a review. We would really appreciate your feedback. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode.
We look forward to hearing your feedback and seeing you all find that extra joy and embrace your own imperfect.
See you next week.